Hi, my name is Colin Fox, and I'm going to be doing my presentation on the freedom movement era of poetry. Let's first begin by talking about the freedom movement and what it is. The freedom movement took place during times of racial injustice within the United States, and most of the poetry that came from this movement focuses on topics of segregation and equal rights. Many of the writers in this movement actively protested and strived towards better conditions for minority groups, and this poetry movement is closely tied to the civil rights movement that took place within the United States. Some of the poets that were part of the freedom movement were Langston Hughes, Michael S. Harper, who was greatly influenced by jazz music and civil rights, and Dudley Randall, who wrote his own poems and helped publish many other black poets' poetry. And now I'll talk more about Langston Hughes. Langston Hughes is most well known for his works in the Harlem Renaissance. Langston had a long career of writing, around 4 decades. He continuously fought against social injustice and racial equality through his literature. He used his poetry to rally people together and stand up for what was right. The poem I picked as an example from the freedom movement is called Backlash Blues by Langston Hughes. It's 6 stanzas long, shows what the freedom movement focused on, and was even made into a song by Nina Simone. And here's how it's read. Mr. Backlash, Mr. Backlash, just who do you think I am? You raise my taxes, freeze my wages, send my son to Vietnam. You give me second-class houses, second-class schools. Do you think that colored folks are just second-class fools? When I try to find a job to earn a little cash, all you got to offer is a white backlash. But the world is big, big and bright and round, and it's full of folks like me who are black, yellow, beige, and brown. Mr. Backlash, what do you think I got to lose? I'm gonna leave you, Mr. Backlash, singing your mean old backlash blues. You're the one will have all the blues, not me. Wait and see. To analyze the poem, Langston calls out to Mr. Backlash. The Mr. Backlash that he calls out to is the name he has given to the white racist reaction to the U.S. civil rights movement. The word backlash symbolizes something revolting, or hard and hitting back. In lines 2 through 6, Langston is telling Mr. Backlash everything he does unfairly, such as taxes, freezing wages, and sending children to Vietnam. Then in line 8, he asks the question, do you think that colored folks are just second-class fools? This is calling out the white racists directly and protesting what they do. The poem flows smoothly because it rhymes in each of these stanzas. Moving on to stanzas 3 and 4, stanza 3 shows the racism that was faced by African Americans and other minorities when trying to find a job. Jobs would be given to white employees first, then at a lower pay given to African American workers. This shows how harsh and unfair segregation was. Stanza 4 shifts to a more enlightened tone. Langston says, but the world is big, big, bright, and round. He is saying that things will get better because the world is big and bright. In lines 15 and 16, Langston is referencing all the minority groups and saying that they should join him to help get justice for all. Stanzas 5 and 6 are the ending of the poem. In line 17, the refrain, Mr. Backlash, is repeated again like it was said at the beginning of the poem. Langston also asks Mr. Backlash what he has to lose, meaning that he will give everything up to make change. The ending lines of the poem tells Mr. Backlash that change will come. I'm gonna leave you, Mr. Backlash, he says, talking about how all this will be in the past after change happens. In the next line, he says, the white racists sing mean old backlash blues, referring to the racial slurs and saying that many white racists would say. The final words of the poem are wait and see, meaning he knows change will happen and nothing will stop him. And eventually, this change did happen.